Let's do it. Friends, hello and welcome to day 8 of Drenched in Wonder Cannabis Conversations. We've been going a whole week now and gosh, what an adventure this already is. When I set out to create a daily podcast for the whole excitement of the launch of Drenched in Wonder and the Kickstarter campaign, it was like this personal challenge. You know, I've never done a podcast before and it was like, all right, let's just see if I can actually do it. And so far it's working. Every day I'm seeing that there are more people jumping on board the conversation, more people commenting, more people sharing, more people talking about it. And that's just really, really so exciting, friends, because that's really the whole reason that I've written this book in the first place. So thank you for being here once again. What are we talking about today? Well, I was thinking about this. I have my list of topics that I've been kind of gradually working through, and each day I kind of just gut feel it as to which one I'm going to dive into. And the last few days, we've tackled some pretty heavy, pretty serious stuff, which is great. It's a really important side of the conversation, and I want to have that balanced conversation because a lot of people don't. They focus on only one side of the picture. And of course, the topic of cannabis has many different sides to it. It's multidimensional, you might say. But today, folks, I wanted to talk about some of the fun that can come with cannabis, and specifically cannabis as an enhancer of our daily life. You know, this question of, is everything better with cannabis? I've heard this mentioned a few times by various people. I first saw it in the film Pineapple Express, where the main character is talking about how it makes literally everything better. And my initial response is, yes. Actually, yes, it does make literally everything better. And I remember in the early days, soon after I'd first tried cannabis, I realized that all the experiences I'd had in my life, there was a whole other level to explore under the influence of cannabis. And it was like, okay, I have to re-experience these things. I have to re-watch my favorite film. I have to re-listen to my favorite music. I want to experience going on a roller coaster under the influence slightly. And of course, it's important to be mindful of the tipping point, as we spoke about in the previous episode. Tipping point, tipping point, tipping point. Depending on the thing that we're trying to do or accomplish or experience, there's a certain dose or a certain level of high that we would get to that would be kind of optimum for that specific thing. So do keep that in mind. It's a constantly evolving, changing picture depending on what we're actually trying to do. And very often it's a fine line. Like for instance, work mode for me. Like when I'm diving into a specific work task that requires a great deal of focus, very often I will use cannabis to help me focus more. And though it does kind of depend on the work I'm doing, you know, creative work, obviously, I've spoken about that before, but even the tasks that I consider like the necessary borings, right? Sometimes with a little cannabis lift, suddenly those tasks aren't quite so awful anymore. I can find the fun in them just a little bit easier. But of course, if I go too far, then suddenly I'm like pushing numbers around a spreadsheet mindlessly, just kind of lost. You know, my focus is gone. I'm becoming frustrated because I'm not getting anything done. And it has the opposite effect. Again, remembering that it affects everyone slightly differently. For me, I find that cannabis does provide clarity and speed and precision to a point, of course. But for others, it may actually dull the sense of urgency. And of course, depending on the strain, depending on the time of day, depending on our level of kind of tiredness and our level of stress, you know, it can work in our favor or it can work against us. For some people, it may just completely dull the sense of urgency, and that might be great for stress, but not so good if you've got a looming deadline. The other thing to be mindful of is the diminishing of the experience over time. Like, we get used to experiencing things through cannabis. So suddenly experiencing things without it becomes like baseline, becomes kind of boring. And again, balancing the time under the influence with the time not. So before I hit record on this episode, I was brainstorming a list of things that I've found to be made better with cannabis. I'm just going to read you that list. Listening to music, watching films, appreciating sunsets, stargazing, feeling textures like clothing and fabric, savoring food, smelling flowers, the fresh air, the rain on the road, creative tasks, basically anything creative, painting, photography, writing, songwriting, filmmaking, brainstorming, dancing, conversation, and deep conversation. Personal growth areas like meditation, journaling, processing of emotions and thoughts, Revisiting challenging memories with a softer lens and a greater sense of self-love. Adventure, like hiking and nature walks, exploring new cities and towns and traveling, experiencing art, visiting galleries and museums. And of course, simple everyday joys. Cleaning, yes, actually, gardening, playing with pets, cooking, showers, one of my personal favorites. You get the idea, I suspect. Now, a few things that it may actually not be great for. Tight deadlines. Maybe it helps, maybe it doesn't. I've found that if there's additional pressure, that it probably doesn't help. Doing this daily podcast, for instance, and trying to talk kind of coherently, I'm gonna wait till after I finish recording before I have any cannabis in my day. One thing I will say is that I never perform while under the influence. There's a part of me that thinks I could, but also any high pressure situations, for me, it's a no-go. And it's just too risky in my mind. A few obvious ones: important work meetings. I mean, you do you, but I would probably advise against. Driving, obviously, that's a big can of worms. There's a whole separate deep dive to go into there, which I will likely circle back to in an upcoming episode. Conflict resolution and deep, serious conversations. Again, it could go either way. And of course, anything where there's significant risk involved or requiring quick physical reactions. We get it. We know. Don't operate heavy machinery while under the influence of cannabis. Sports? Maybe. Like the energy and the motivation and the excitement that I get from cannabis. When I play sports, it's like I'm zoned in. I'm more effective, I find. But some may well have the opposite experience. So I'm curious, what about you? What's one thing that you found was enhanced by cannabis and one thing that definitely wasn't? Thank you for joining me for this episode, friends. Join me for the next episode where I'm going to be diving a little bit deeper into cannabis and connection, how cannabis changed the way that I show up to the world and to the relationships in my life. Until soon, friends, be safe, be smart, as always. I'll see you soon.